Geoff Diehl is with us, Senate candidate, Massachusetts, running against Elizabeth Warren. He had some interesting comments to say about Warren's comments about the death of Molly Tibbetts and his latest campaign ad.
My son, Matthew Denise, was 23 years old. He was kind, caring, outgoing. He was more than I could ever have hoped for in a son. My son was killed by someone who should never have been in the country. The only thing that has changed since Matthew's death is the death toll. It's estimated that there are 20 people a day killed by illegal aliens. That's over 7,000 people every year. My son is dead because too many politicians in local jurisdictions put illegal aliens ahead of Americans.
Very important story in the news. It has to do with Molly Tibbetts, the young woman in Iowa who was murdered. A person has been charged with it. This person is an undocumented immigrant.
We need an immigration system that focuses on where real problems are. I went down to the border. I met with those mothers who had been lied to, and there was no plan for how they would be reunified with their children.
And that's the latest ad of Geoff Diehl, Senate candidate, Massachusetts, running against Elizabeth Warren. Geoff, that's a tough ad. What's the reaction in Massachusetts been to it?
Well, Sean, thanks for having me on. And I'll tell you, people in Massachusetts disappointed once again with Elizabeth Warren. Just 2 weeks ago, she made that comment down in New Orleans that the entire criminal justice system, including law enforcement, are racist. I think people were extremely upset with that. Then to have that pretty heartless turn from talking about the family to what she considered to be the real problem, which was families being separated at the border, illegal immigrants over American citizens, that really has caused people to get upset.
Where was she when Obama did the same thing? And why doesn't she applaud? It was President Trump. I don't even think it's constitutional, this executive order, but he passed it anyway. He signed it anyway.
No, I know. And by the way, Sean, the other sad thing is 2 days ago when she made this comment, it was the 7-year anniversary of the loss of Matthew Denise. That's Maureen Maloney's son. That was Maureen Maloney's voice in the audio you just played. I asked her if she would introduce me at the convention 6 months ago when I won the Republican nomination to run against Elizabeth Warren. Maureen is an angel mom named by Donald Trump to that group. So she speaks nationally about this issue about illegal immigrants killing American citizens. Those are the ones that are separated from their families permanently, and that's the problem with Elizabeth Warren. She doesn't seem to even want to acknowledge or recognize the problem. In fact, she's going the other way. She wants to eliminate ICE, and of course she's villainized law enforcement.
Let me ask you this. Look, I know Bill well. There's been Scott Brown as an example. Massachusetts, every once in a while, kind of surprises the country. Although, let's be honest, they're more liberal Republicans. I'm not even a member of the Republican Party. I'm a registered conservative in New York. But it's not unthinkable, even in Massachusetts, and I lived 5 years on the border with Seekonk and Swansea, Massachusetts, and I remember it well. I lived in Rhode Island 5 years. But it's an uphill climb if a Republican wants to win in Massachusetts. Why do you think you can unseat her, especially with her, our national fame shooting through the roof?
First of all, Sean, you remember Scott Brown being the 41st vote against the Unaffordable Care Act. Massachusetts was the blueprint for that plan, and yet we still sent Scott Brown because he explained how financially it wasn't going to benefit anybody. Of course, nobody's gotten that $2,500 annual savings. I led in 2014 a repeal of the indexed gas tax here in Massachusetts, putting $2 billion back in the pockets of people and businesses, and so that's been another indicator of how fiscally aware voters in Massachusetts are. And I will tell you this, Donald Trump got more votes in Massachusetts than our Republican governor, Charlie Baker, who's one of the more popular governors around the country. So on paper, the votes are out there in this election.
Let me ask you this, would it help your campaign, in your opinion, if Donald Trump went in to campaign for you?
Absolutely. 20,000 Democrats unenrolled to vote for him in the primary. I was the only Republican who actually endorsed Donald Trump. I was his co-chair for Massachusetts, and he is delivering on all the promises economically. Massachusetts has country-leading low unemployment, 3.5%. We have over $1.2 billion in new revenue because of the job growth and wage increases, because of the tax reform bill that, by the way, Elizabeth Warren voted against, and she called it crumbs, just like Nancy Pelosi. People in Massachusetts.
By the way, if they're just crumbs, why does everybody want their crumbs back so badly? If it's only crumbs, let us keep it.
People in Massachusetts will vote what's in their financial interest. They know with me that I've cut taxes, and I want to continue the progress that's happening in Washington. And Elizabeth Warren wants to take our country back to a socialist, agenda of higher taxes. She wants, obviously, government-run health care, which doesn't work. We know the price tag on that, $32.6 trillion if she wants to implement that. And Elizabeth Warren, again, is so out of touch with reality. She's putting the interest of people who are not citizens over those of Americans. And I think the Tibbetts family, they deserve an apology, in my opinion, from her for being so basically unsensitive to the issue and really just trying to make political points out of this whole thing.
Well, so I can't really even admit this, but it's the truth. When I lived in Rhode Island, I could not get enough of watching Larry Bird and Parrish and DJ, Kevin McHale, Danny Ainge, going up against Magic Johnson and Showtime in Los Angeles. One of the greatest moments in NBA history, watching that rivalry. Is one of the best ever. But as a New Yorker, that's a death sentence for me, just so, what I'm admitting here, it's a bad thing. Well, listen, we wish you a lot, Geoff. We're going to follow your race. It sounds like you have your pulse on the people of Massachusetts. I do think it's a long shot, but if people... in the era of Trump, people need to believe anything can happen. But we have the most important election, I think, in our lifetime, this midterm, which is coming up in just 74 days, and we're going to follow your race closely. Thanks for being with us.
Well, I appreciate it. And people go to dealforsenate.com. They can be involved in helping me out as well. Thanks, Sean.
All right, Geoff Diehl, running in Massachusetts.